Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to HOTFIX. Good Lord, Mr. Kirioth. Hello. How do I find you, sir?
Absolutely spiffing old fruit.
Indeed, old bean.
Old bean is the best of the two.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's a phrase which revolves around the word chestnut. Me old chestnut or something?
Me old chestnut.
Something like that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are not talking about various bits of English, like, what would that even be classed as?
Food or slang.
Nuts and stuff. Anyway, yeah, we are here to talk about shipping broken games and how this is, it's becoming a, I'm going to use some fancy words. I think this is the correct word to be using as well. It's becoming a rather systemic problem in the industry.
Oh. Oh. Oh, I like that. Oh,
So-
systemic. Good Lord.
There was recently a little bit of fuss about EA and about the shipping of Battlefield 4. That apparently some fellows rather jazzy with code worked out that they kind of released the game knowing it was broke, knowing it would crash randomly. And me and Kirioth both experienced this. The game would just crash. Loads of people experienced it. Everybody was moaning about it. I made a video where I slammed the game because I was disgusted with this. This is unacceptable. However, this it's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There is a very, very big problem with this, and like the issue I've got is I don't get where companies, game companies specifically, publishers, developers, whoever the hell is responsible for the final say, so it's most likely publishers, where they can get off just releasing a game that they know is broken, does not correctly function, yet the game is listed as having a certain amount of features, yet some of them don't work come launch. I mean, what? You know, what is that about?
The thing that's kind of astonished me about this, the fact that this has blown up so much, is that it's like people are slamming EA and Battlefield 4 for Battlefield 4 being released in a frankly terrible state. And it's like, oh my god, this is unacceptable. How can this be done? Actually, have they not been paying attention for the last couple of years? Because I don't know about you, son, but I've seen quite a number of games released over the last couple of years that have been horrendous messes when they were first released.
Oh, yeah.
And a little bit of fuss is made, but it's never quite blown up to this extent before, which is a bit odd to me. It's like people have only just noticed that it's a big deal, when actually it's been a big deal for quite some time, if we look at it. I mean,
maybe it's just the size of the release, though, because Battlefield 4 is a big release. You know, this is something which is verging on Call of Duty levels of release, which is quite a big release.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people there who get the game and cannot play the game. There are a lot of problems with Battlefield 4, not just the crashing issue, which they claim to have sorted out, but I can tell you now, my game still crashes. Not as frequently as it did, but it still crashes, and it still is very irritating because it has quite long load times. Now, I know a lot of people have said, oh yeah, but if you get an SSD, it loads faster and all this. Yeah, marginally faster, but the game has painfully long load times for maps. Obviously, once the map's loaded in, it's cached and whatnot, then it does load really quick the next time. But the game crashes quite a lot, and it's very irritating. But not as much as it did at launch. So I guess, like, you know, I think back to other examples, and I think back to games that we've done on the channel. So Legends of Pegasus, not a well-known game, but this game was completely broke. And I'm pretty sure
it was a mess.
What was the cost of this? I'm pretty sure this was 30 quid. This was an expensive game.
It was 25 or 30, one of the two.
It was expensive.
And it wasn't just the fact that it was buggy, it was also the fact that it was just unfinished.
Just had bits missing.
Bits of the UI didn't fit into it, and other bits of the UI were like, they looked like placeholder items because they were, and they never did anything about it. I mean, actually, there's a massive number of games that have been released in like a horrid state. Unfortunately, to mention another Paradox title, because I believe Paradox was Legends of Pegasus.
Was Magica it? I don't know whether it was. I don't know whether it was, actually.
I thought it was.
I don't think it was.
Or maybe I'm getting that confused with a similar.
Carry on.
Was it Iceberg? Because also Paradox became quite well known, unfortunately, for releasing games that were not really finished. I mean, Magica was plagued with issues when that was released.
It's Calypso.
Calypso. My mistake.
Legends of Pegasus.
But I mean, I Magica was in quite a bad state. I'd say that, although it wasn't quite as bad as, I think Legends of Pegasus is probably the most broken game I've ever seen. Like, in terms of what it was supposed to be, and the fact that it wasn't even finished.
But it's a game that not most a lot of people know about, though. This is the thing. Like, this is its own on the Battlefield point, where a lot of people were playing that and it was kippered. Not to the extent of Legends of Pegasus, which was bad. Paradox, though, is a very interesting thing, because Paradox are like kind of notorious for releasing games that do not work. Well, they do work, but they're kind of buggy as hell at launch. I know some of their
Yeah.
recent titles have been a lot better, but there are some famous examples, like you touched on, Magica. That was at launch, that was unplayable. Remember me and you tried to play that multiplayer? You got,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've even played the game since, to be honest. And the it's like a magic spell book, is it, that opens up the menu?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we're trying to open it up and find the games, and it was just crashing, and it was just horrendous. But I'm
Yeah.
sure you've got quite a good example, Mr. Kirioth. I'm putting you on the spot
I mean-
of a game, Paradox, published, which was, well, quite horrendously broken. So it was a space game.
Honestly, oh god, I'm. Are you thinking Sword of the Stars?
I am, son. I am.
Because that was not good.
I
That was
believe
not-
they had to put out
half the
formal
game
apologies and everything for that.
Yeah, half the game was missing. Like, just not even there. And that was that. I mean, that was, as examples go, that was pretty bad. Although you could say, well, that was quite a while ago. Maybe things have improved. Well, they might have improved with Paradox, but sticking with the space theme, have you seen the reports of X Rebirth recently, sir?
Oh God, yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah,
that is
I
an
have.
absolute collapse fest, which is a shame because I was actually looking at getting that. But
And you know what?
by
I'll
all
tell you about
accounts,
them.
It is
I'll tell you
buggy
about
as
them.
hell.
They were going to give me 2 review copies of that game. Okay. Then mysteriously, they were not going to give me any. I emailed them and says, "Where are the copies? They should have arrived by now." No comment. Then you see the reviews hitting the internet. People, like a lot of YouTube channels doing, and it's just like the performance is terrible, the game's bossed, and all this stuff. A lot of
Yeah.
people were going crazy. Then they start. I think they did certain questionable things on their Steam forum. I think they deleted posts and stuff. I don't know, to make it not look as bad. But yeah, that was. I think that's the most recent example of a game that is shipped in a state that the developers know it's broke. Because let's be honest here, ladies and gentlemen, it's not like this is a surprise. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
we've worked on the game for 3 years. We test the game all the time. We know this game's not going to work, but we've got to launch it. And we'll touch on that in a moment, why I think they have to launch these, or why they do launch these games. Often than not, more often than not anyway, it comes down to money. But we'll get onto that because we've got more examples of games which are capitulation filled.
Unfortunately, there are loads of examples. There's one that I want to get out of the way because in some respects it was a bad launch, and this is Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, which was it was not good. It had an internal rendering resolution of 1024 by 768.
Well, you need to clarify
That's
this.
bad.
You mean the PC launch, not the console?
Oh yeah, the PC launch.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is that that's often cited as a really bad port. It's cited as a bad release. Keyboard and mouse was jerky and practically unplayable. You know, the internal resolution was absolutely awful. The game looked like crap because of it.
Well, I mean,
And-
hell, we made that video about it, and we didn't even.
Yeah.
As a result of that, I did not play the game. I did not have my. I've got
Yeah.
it down here. Oh, it's tangled up or whatever. I didn't have my Xbox controller then. I had keyboard and mouse, and I could not play that game because it was just horrendous.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's really bad. But there is one thing to be said for that. And it's not often I will actually come out in defence of a bad release, because I still think it was a bad port. I still think they should have done more effort. But From Software, the guys who make Dark Souls, do not do PC games. And they did it as a result of a petition. Now, they should have done a better job. That's
so
undeniable.
why did they do it as a
But-
result of a petition? Because they could see there was a viable audience, so they wanted the money,
Yeah.
so they put the game out in a fucking shit state. Should not have come out in that state.
Yeah.
And if
It's
so,
like on-
and I tell you what, Dark Souls was only playable after some guy turned up and made DS fix.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. To me, it's like, on the one hand, they weren't going to do it originally. They did state when they first started doing the port that the focus would be on controllers because that's
Yeah.
what the game was made mine for. So that side of things, it's like, well, you were warned. However, the technical stuff, like locking the frames per second, locking the internal rendering,
This is
making it
another
so
rant
that
I'm going to go
rendering-
into. Need for
like,
Speed
that
Rivals.
is-
Need for Speed Rivals,
God.
right, bloke? That is locked at 30 FPS. This is because we're talking about Dark Souls, and that was locked at 30 FPS as well, right?
Yeah.
A game running at 30 FPS is fucking horrendous, right? The only people who will say, "Oh yeah, this is a fine game, you know, this works fine," yada yada yada, are people who have never seen. Well, who've just played at consoles at 30 FPS for most of their gaming careers. My monitor has got a refresh rate of 144 hertz. That means it can do 144 frames a second. If a game is running at that speed, I tell you what now, it is silky smooth. One of the biggest differences I notice in Windows, when I move the windows around the screen, they look dead good. Like they don't like fall apart like they do on the other monitor, which is only 60 hertz. Okay, which means it's got a refresh rate of 60 frames per second essentially. But a game that is running at 30 frames per second. Compared to a game running at 60 frames per second, there is a massive difference, ladies and gentlemen. And now I can even tell the difference between 60 and 120. There is a difference. Like the responsiveness of the game is much better. But when
the main problem,
oh man, you can't release a game on PC.
Speed, though.
Why was it locked though? Why was it even locked?
Not only was it locked, but actually, if you look at the footage, I mean, Total Biscuit did a video on Need for Speed Rivals, showing you what happens when you unlock it. You have to use a command line to unlock it, go into the console and do like a command line thing to get it to 60 frames a second. The game runs at double fucking speed. What is that? We're not even like we're not trying to run DOS games on these things. This is a AAA title. What is that about? If you load up Red Alert, the original, in a DOS box or whatever, then yes, you can expect double speed off the game. Or maybe even triple. God knows what you might find. But Need for Speed Rivals is 2013, for Christ's sake. That is terrible. And the other thing as well is, as I noticed, because I watched that video this morning, not only does the game run at double speed, but it doesn't actually alter the speed of the cars in the races. Because what he did was, he went cop and he chased a racer. He was going twice as fast as the racer. When he accelerated, he went straight past the person he was supposed to catch, and they ended up way behind him. Because they stuck at a certain speed, but he was going twice as fast as he should. What is that? What the hell is that? That is beyond terrible. And they released it knowing that if someone tried to mess with it, that would happen. You're not telling me no one, absolutely no one at Ghost, the guys who developed this game, sat there and no one thought, should we make sure that this doesn't collapse if you run it at faster than 30? Because I know PC gamers are going to try it.
Honestly,
I know they're going to try it.
You know what? I think that's cynical. They just sit there and they think we don't give a shit about our PC sales because they're not going to be that influential. We don't care. We only care about the consoles. But then, like, why is the game releasing at 30 FPS on the consoles? I thought this newfangled new generation could run games at 60 FPS, or so they claim. Now, like, the issue with, I mean, obviously, that what you've just explained there. I guess explains why that game was locked at 30 FPS, because the engine has been designed in such a way that if it does run at anything more, then all of the speed parameters and everything just go completely out the window and the game's broke.
But why is that the case? Is the problem?
Who knows?
It's like the entire engine's been built around 30 FPS at a time when all the things that is selling the most, the PC is still a relatively popular title, obviously. There's 2 new next-generation consoles, both capable of 60 frames per second, so they took a title that's available at launch for both and locked it at 30. What the fuck are you doing? What is that? That's like...
I mean, I could understand if it was locked for performance problems, right, on consoles, but PCs, they're not consoles. You know what I mean? You could be sitting there with quad SLI Titans, I'm not sure many people are, but you could be, and you could demand 4K resolution, and you could also demand 500 frames a second. You should be able to do that because the engine should scale. Now, I don't know. I'm not a programmer. I don't know why they decided to do that. But fuck them. I'd punch my microphone and I apologise for that. What other examples have we got of games that were shipped and were broken? Because this is annoying me now. I'm annoyed.
There's the big one. The big one, son. The War Z.
Oh no!
I don't think we don't really need to touch on that all that much because I believe we've covered that plenty on this channel. But that's a clusterfuck.
Fuck that game.
It's been renamed, by the way, to Infested Survivor Stories. So if you see that on Steam, don't buy it.
No,
it's absolutely terrible. More recently, GTA 5 Online. That was a clusterfuck when it released. People were ranking up. They were getting money and multiplayer.
Though, isn't it? Didn't it have connection problems?
It did. I mean, it had connection problems, but also all your stuff got deleted at random. That's not connection problems. That's just stupid bugs. Like, they were talking about it in one of the Rooster Teeth videos I was watching, where one of them had bought a flat and a car. He logged in, and his flat and his car were gone. And he had no money. Now that's not connection problems, is it? That is their databases randomly wiping themselves for no reason. That's quite bad. So that was obviously a massive disaster. Hellgate London, going back a bit when that launched,
that was a disaster.
That was horrendous. That just collapsed. It was full of bugs. There were connection issues. The game crashed. It was not good. So, and Final Fantasy XIV, now as it's called, Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn.
Yes,
because they released it. It was so horrendous that they pulled it from the shelves after a month and are redeveloping it.
Did redevelop it.
Did redevelop it. But I mean, that's quite bad. To release a game and then have to pull it from shelves and then re-release it again when you'd overhauled the entire thing, that's quite bad. I mean, the problems with that were not just bugs. I mean, it was bugs. It was buggy as hell. But the UI was completely indecipherable. They had a trading system where you didn't know who was... Like, the trading system, you could hire NPCs to sell items for you, right? But it never told anyone who was selling the item. So the market was like, I'm buying something and I don't know who from or why I'm buying it from them. Or it was just a complete
What?
mess. And
Oh,
yeah, I mean, what the
man.
hell is that? You can't have an economy based on not knowing what you're buying and who you're buying it from. What the fuck is that? SimCity 5, that was quite bad.
Oh god, yeah,
I say
I
quite bad,
forgot about
was
that.
horrendous.
Oh yeah,
That kind of slipped off the map, which is a shame because
I don't know what
they
that-
promised a lot of stuff with that.
They did, yeah.
I mean, they were promising like the lives of your Sims were, they were constant, but they weren't because they just went to random houses and did random jobs.
Yeah.
The traffic was
I
all
remember
completely
that.
broken.
I remember
It
that.
was-
He would live in one house, but then he'd go to work and then just go live somewhere else. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
And then next day go work at the corner shop instead of going to the power station. That was terrible.
So bad.
If you go back as well, Half-Life 2, that was quite a shitty launch. That was quite bad.
It was,
That was
yeah.
tied into Steam, and you had to be online to play it, except Steam was broken, so you couldn't play it. And Half-Life 2 was tied into it so much that you could not play the game. That's still.
I know,
mean,
but
people like to defend Valve,
hang on a
but
minute.
I still think that's not great.
Let's talk about not Half-Life, but let's talk about some of the things, because we're kind of like going over a lot of different ways in which games are broken at launch. Now, I'm going to say this might be quite controversial, but there are acceptable ways games can be broken at launch, right? What annoys me is if like features that are advertised. So let's just make an imaginary game up. This is a game about a military shooter man who can use rocket launchers and shotguns, and he can fly a plane, and he goes to space. The game, that's what it says are the features. The game launches, there is
You just
no
made that
space.
up off the top of your head.
Yes, it's Call of Duty, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no space. There's no shotguns, and you've only got a handgun, right? So hang on a minute. A lot of features are missing. This game's launched. You've bought the game because you thought you were going to get this. You can play the game. You don't have that. That's false advertising. You should be sued for that because you are basically saying, check my product out, buy this, but really it doesn't do this. Ha ha ha. You've bought this and it doesn't do that. That's my major issue here, because if you look at any other industry, if we look at the automotive industry, you go out and buy a car, Mr. Kirioth. If you go and buy a... Mr. Kirioth's off to buy a some sort of... he's going to buy a... What are you going to buy, Mr. Kirioth? What car are you going to buy?
I'll take a BMW M6.
So he's off to
I'll
buy
have
a
one of those.
BMW M6 with this week's unit lost earnings, right? And he walks into the shop and he says, "Hello, good sir. I'd like that BMW M6 over there." And he says, "Oh, yes, sir. This has got a series of features. It's got air conditioning. It's got super massage seats. It's got a like a hot tub in the back, right? This is great." Mr. Kirioth buys the car. It gets delivered to him because he's all rich and whatnot from unit lost earnings. It has no hot tub. It has no air conditioning, and it's a BMW 1 Series. And he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But he's paid full price for that. What would happen in that case? Well, Mr. Kirioth, he would not be happy. And he would get all his money back. He'd probably get compensation as a result of that, because he's going to take legal action, because he's bought the most like super upgraded M6 or whatever the hell he wanted for 130 grand. It's probably not even, you probably can't even get that, which whatever, 130 grand, and they've sent him back. In that industry, it's not acceptable. Let's look at another industry, the electronics industry. I go out and buy a television. I buy it off the internet. They tell me it's 40-inch. They deliver a 32-inch television. What's this? You told me it was 40-inch. You give me a 32. You send the product back. You get the replacement product, yeah? You might even get compensation as well. Gaming industry, I buy a game. I buy Final Fantasy 14. The game doesn't work. What's this? It's supposed to be an MMO. The game just doesn't work. Oh, the game's shut down. What? Now, I know in that case they did give people who bought the game access to the game when it was remade, so maybe not the best example. The Battlefield 4 is a better example. I bought the game. Oh, it's just not working. What the hell's going on here? You look at examples with MMOs. Even, actually, we'll use Grand Theft Auto Online. This was a good example. They had problems, so what they did was they compensated the players, didn't they? Didn't they give them like a stimulus package or something stupid?
Yeah, they did.
Taking the piss out of Call of Duty. But they gave players that. So at least they acknowledged that was a problem, and they kind of tried to mitigate it, because these things are services. It's not like... The online thing is a little bit different. Like an MMO is a little bit different to going out and buying a boxed game, which is like a single-player experience, for example. That just doesn't work, like Legends of Pegasus or Sword of the Stars or games like that.
Day one Gary's incident. Just to throw in another
yeah, that was
example
terrible.
there. That was not good.
Not to mention
But
their conduct of trying to remove videos off YouTube. Oh dear.
Which is beyond... That's just beyond disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves. Hopefully they are, but I have the feeling they're probably not. But that's kind of... That is the main thing for me. It's like... whether it's missing content or whether it's the game is released and just does not work, it crashes, it collapses. I cannot honestly sit there and think to myself, well, I'm sure they didn't know, because they did know.
They did know, yeah.
They did know. There is no... I mean, especially for massive releases like Need for Speed Rivals, like Battlefield 4, you are not telling me that they released Battlefield 4 ignorant of the fact that half the people who bought it would not be able to play the fucking game. You're not telling me that, because if you did tell me that, I'd tell you to get lost, you're an idiot. There is no way that they did not know that that game had serious stability issues. It still does. And yes, they sold it anyway. That's like a 40 quid game. That is expensive. That is a lot of money. And what do you get for it? If you're lucky, you might have 2 minutes. You might have 2 minutes of gameplay, and then the game bloody crashes, and you got to start all over again. Also, the fact that it impacts negatively on your profile as well. Now, this is only a small thing. I'm not too fussed about this, but I could see why other people would be.
Oh yeah.
If your game crashes in the middle of a match,
well, shit,
and it does that
me.
for
I
10
was like, check this
consecutive
game
matches,
out. Yeah, I was like, check this game out, and I'm trying to find the report, and it just wasn't there. I'm like, well, where the hell is the game report? What the fuck is this? Like, it didn't exist. I was top of the team. I was top of the team.
I've had the game crash, and it said I've left the game. I've got a 25% leave ratio. That's not even remotely accurate.
Yeah.
That's because when I first got the game, for the first day, I spent half my time trying to get the fucking thing to work, because it just crashed every 2 minutes.
It is built on the engine that built Battlefield 3. That doesn't have server stability problems, so why does this? It's like weird. It's like, but let's talk about some of the reasons why this happens. Okay, so I think the biggest reason is money, right? I think now I've never worked in the gaming industry and producing games and any of that, but I think this is what's happened. So Battlefield 4 is the best example of this. Okay, you've got the studio DICE EA, okay, which is called DICE EA for a reason, because it's an EA studio that EA have bought out DICE, and they want them to make their competitor to the Call of Duty series, which is one of the biggest selling game series ever. Okay, you can understand that, right? They bought them in, right? Now, to stay competitive, they need to release games on a certain schedule. This is, they released just before Call of Duty this year, okay? So, I'm just going to pull these dates out of my arse because I can't remember off the top of the head what they are. So, let's just say November the 1st, Battlefield is going to launch, and November the 10th, Call of Duty is going to launch, right? Well, November the 1st is when Battlefield's going to launch, okay? So, a lot of advertising is going into this. We're talking millions of dollars here, ladies and gentlemen. Loads of advertising all over the internet, everywhere. I mean, remember Grand Theft Auto? They had posters up and shit like that. Maybe they did the same. Yeah. In fact, they did. I think E3 had like Battlefield 4 branding all over the place, over the fucking building, the convention centre.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, right? So for them to then say, oh no, we can't launch on this date because a game crashes 50% of the time for 50% of players, that's going to cost them a lot of money. So basically, you can imagine it's EA have probably gone to DICE. The game's launching now, so that's what's happening, so shut your mouth. If it doesn't launch, you don't meet any of these quotas, you don't get this, you don't get that. So the game needs to launch. So you can imagine the game goes into launch. Now, there's going to be a massive shitstorm. What's happening with the gaming industry? Well, more so the gaming media, like us. We are new media, right? We are unregulated media. We don't have to sit down and go, please, Mr. EA, we understand why your game's bad. We don't. We just go on YouTube and go, what the fuck is this? I did that. Loads of people did that. They can't control that, okay? So, they have a problem. They get a massive load of negative PR about their game, but the game's launched, okay? And it's sold millions of copies because it's Battlefield 4, okay? And it is a good game when it works, right? And it is beginning to work increasingly more often now, which is a good thing. Okay. Now you could get people who say, well, the thing is, this was to be expected. Never buy the games at launch, especially off people like EA, right? Because they're probably going to be broken, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes, like, the gamer inside really wants to take, inside me anyway, really wants to be there at the launch of a game, especially Battlefield 4, because I did enjoy Battlefield 3 for a decent amount of time. I think Battlefield 4 was a much better game. Something to just waste away time on and just shoot people. And it looks nice. It's, the graphics are really nice, and the way the game plays is really nice and all of that. But I honestly think the problem we've got is there is this deadline where if this deadline is not met, it doesn't matter. The game's launched anyway because they need to recover the costs then, because they must build into their financial plan a certain number of sales within launch week, which is how much they're going to build back, and all the rest of that. Now, before I let you jump in, Mr. Kirioth, there is another example of this kind of working the other way. This is Watch Dogs. Now, Watch Dogs should have been released for the new console launches, but they pushed that back, which is kind of strange because they spent a lot of cash advertising that. So why would they do that? Now, I think this could be probably because they don't want to launch around the same time as Battlefield and Call of Duty, big launch titles, right? Call of Duty, launching with Call of Duty is basically suicidal anyway, because everybody's going to buy Call of Duty. You know, well, I don't say everybody, but a lot of people are going to buy Call of Duty. So I think maybe they took a calculated risk and thought, you know what, we can just maybe forget all of our advertising and we'll just release next year. Maybe it is a problem with the game, okay? But I'm going to be a bit cynical again and think it's not. I think this is just a decision that's been made by somebody in a marketing department to get maximum return on the game when it's launched. Not because this, as stupid as this sounds, it seems like the quality of the title at launch is like not even the first priority when it should be.
Yeah, that's. I think that for me is the biggest problem. People like saying things like, "Oh well, don't pre-order, don't buy at launch, wait a few weeks," that kind of thing. I mean, yeah, that is one way to deal with it. But the main issue is the fact that you consider that to be a solution anyway. How have we got to the point where the solution to games being horrendously buggy at launch or having missing content is, oh, just don't buy it at launch? No, don't just not buy it at launch. Point out to these companies why it's unacceptable that they're releasing a half-assed piece of shit onto the market instead of actually finishing the game before it launches. If people sit there and take the passive attitude, which is, oh, well, I just won't buy it, I'll wait for a month and then I'll get it, then they'll just keep doing it. We've already got to the point now where it is apparently acceptable, and this has like been a slow decline. It's not been like this all the time, I don't think. I don't recall, for instance, and this is going to sound really weird, but I don't recall when I used to have a PlayStation 2 buying a game and it being horrendously buggy. I just don't remember that happening. I mean, I don't know whether it's because I've got some sort of rose-tinted view on the past or something.
Well, hang on. I think there is an interesting point there, because internet access wasn't as wide as it is now. I think because of the speed of internet connections now, it's suddenly become acceptable to launch a game without, you know, without it being in a launch state, because 2 weeks later you can push a patch through.
You can just patch it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's okay, and it's a good solution for something unexpected happens.
Xbox, I think you had to pay a fee to Microsoft to patch games through Xbox Live on the 360, right? But I don't think you have to pay that anymore, right? So that may pave the way for more crappier releases on the Xbox One, potentially.
Oh,
maybe
it might do, yeah.
I think that's the case anyway.
I mean, I don't know whether I'm just sort of, I just was lucky. I didn't buy games that were buggy back in the olden days. But it just feels like to me that there's been a slow decline in the quality of games when they've been released, and it's suddenly gone from being a slow decline to just a mess. We've gone from every now and then you'd have a title that released and it was big news that it was not in a good state, and now every other week something releases and it's just horrendous. I mean, Battlefield 4 released, that was buggy and broken. Before that, GTA 5 Online released, that was buggy and broken. X Rebirth has just released, that's buggy and broken. Need for Speed Rivals has just released. Guess what that's like? I mean, it's like every couple of weeks we just get a game that the devs or the publishers, I'm going to guess actually that it is the publishers.
It's got to be.
Have
Yeah,
got to a certain point.
I cannot
we need
envision,
to sell this.
Yeah, I can't envision a situation where the people who are working on developing the game are like, yeah, that's fine, just launch it. We've worked on this for a few years. We don't care. It would be like me and you working on a video. I mean, when we work on a video, I don't just think, oh, fuck it, now's the time to launch the video and just put it out without properly editing the video, because that's stupid. But then I've got total control over what I do because I'm independent. These people are not, and I think we're going to wrap this up now. But I think and also I'm going to apologise for the fact why my face keeps going crazy white. It's because the Sun has actually come out. I did not account for the Sun, Mr. Kirioth.
Oh my God!
What is it? The 20th of November. It never comes out in the UK, but it has come out and it's shining through the window, so that's why I'm glowing like a beacon of worth, ladies and gentlemen. However, I think we're going to wrap this up, like I said. So, what I want to know is, I want to know examples of games which have launched and have been terrible. I know we've given a lot, but there are a load. I want to know your experiences with these games. I want to know if you think it's acceptable for games to launch like this. Now, hopefully you'll say, no, it isn't acceptable, it's terrible. But try and differentiate between the fact, if it's an online game and it's got a lot of online services, they're going to need some room to breathe. But if it's a offline game, as in a single player experience, or just a straight up, this is just like a multiplayer shooter game, there you go, there's not that much back end required like a Battlefield 4, or you shouldn't think. Not because what I'm trying to do is compare this to like an MMO, like let's say World of Warcraft had a notoriously dodgy launch, but that's like at the time was an unheard of undertaking. You know, that was such a thing on a scale that had never been done before. So you can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
But things like Battlefield and stuff like that, I don't think they should. But I want to know your opinion on like if you think it's acceptable. And I'll leave you with this interesting thought. I don't think we're going to be that far away from an actual legal response from somebody. I think it's been attempted in the past by smaller things, but I think there'll become a point where a game launches and it is so bad, like regulatory bodies in places like, well, in the, I mean, I don't know if it is in the UK. I can just think of Ofcom, but that's for telephones, isn't it? Ofcom.
Yeah, it is. I can't remember who does it for the entertainment industry.
Yeah, well, whoever it is, right? They will have to put the foot down at some point because you cannot keep selling products to people that are not complete. It is quite literally theft. It is theft. It is false advertising. You are lying to the consumer. You are convincing them to buy something based off information that is a lie. Okay, I mean, you could really put together a damning case, you know, and I don't think any court would go,
yeah,
you know,
the fact of the matter is, you are literally not getting what you're paying for.
Yeah.
That is the bottom line of it. Yeah, you're paying for a finished game with a certain amount of explicitly stated features. If you do not get that, it means they have advertised falsely and they have taken your money for something which they should not have taken your money for. Battlefield 4 for me at the moment is still the prime example because I bought a game expecting to be able to play it and I was not able to. And there's all kinds of bullshit in the terms and conditions, in the end-user license agreements and so on. But the fact of the matter is that you are handing... Oh, I punched my keyboard, I was so angry.
The rage.
You're handing money over to the publisher for the product. If the product is broken, you have had your money taken for nothing. That's not on, that's bullshit, and people need to start standing up for it because it's getting worse and worse. And I swear that's true. I swear it's getting worse. It just is. If just look at how many games are released at the moment that are in a shitty state, it is getting worse. I say hopefully we reach a breaking point. Hopefully publishers actually stop, you know, thinking with their wallets and think about maybe the end user, but that seems very unlikely to happen anytime soon. But it's just getting ridiculous. I think, honestly, it's completely disgraceful. And someone needs to do something. I mean, I suppose in doing this, we are kind of doing something. But I would love to see someone with, frankly, a bigger wallet than mine go after one of these companies.
Well, the only thing which is going to affect these people is if people stop buying the games. That's the thing, like. But then again, you know, you could say we're at fault of this. I kind of suspected Battlefield 4 may be dodgy at launch, but I still bought the game, still pre-ordered it. Whoa, yeah, Battlefield, and then it's like, oh shit. Hang on, I expected better. The thing is that can keep going on and on and on and on into infinity until we reach a point of enough people saying, I'm not going to do this. You know, I know I'm a bad example of this because I've got a YouTube gaming channel, so it is expected of me to have access to the latest game. So, you know, for me to sit there, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, when I'm pre-ordering a lot of games and doing this and doing that, it's kind of rich of me to say. But as a consumer, would I recommend Battlefield 4 to you right now? No. I'd buy it in like 2 months' time. It still is a bit dodgy, you know, and you can apply that to a lot of games, and that's not right, ladies and gentlemen. So I think we'll leave it at that. This has been HOTFIX. This is our gaming opinionated discussion show, as you can tell. We have the hard-hitting topics, Mr. Kirioth. It is above our head. Shipping broken games, that was today's topic. Please leave a comment below on the overall format of the show. If you like the video, then like the video and favourite it and show everybody, your granny, your girlfriend, your mother, your dog. I don't care. Just show everybody. Not your cat, though. I don't like cats. I'm a man on the internet saying I don't like cats. No, I really love cats, yeah.
I was going to hide. Run.
Yes,
hide and run.
Cats. Well, we'll leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. We've been Stylosa and Kirioth, and this has been HOTFIX, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.